Welcome back, team. In our previous session, we understand about Docker file specific to a Spring Boot application and the Docker file which is very specific to the React application, right? The two areas we have noticed, right? And also, we are going to simulate a case especially for the Spring Boot application, and we are going to see a project for that. Okay, we will go there and we'll draw the architecture. We'll try to understand the steps involved so that we'll implement the same for the coming 3 days. Okay. All right. So firstly, team. Right. So let's start how to convert an application, Spring Boot application, into the Dockerized one, and also how the actual architecture would be. Okay. So how the actual architecture, so each and everything will draw now. Okay, right. So for instance, team, okay, I don't want to discuss the steps at the moment. Wait for few more minutes, then automatically you will understand everything. Okay, right. First we'll draw the architecture, how exactly we are planning to see our next project, and we'll draw that one. Then we'll try to assess, and then we'll bring the steps if anything being missed. Okay, all right, fine, team. All right, so in this particular project I'm planning to bring a virtual network, especially and dedicatedly a virtual network. Okay, the VNet is the one of the component which I'm trying to bring here, team. Okay, so that too with Azure VNet. Okay, Azure VNet, you can draw the architectures in real time also in the same way, team. Azure Virtual Network. Okay, all right. See, if you don't find any icon here, especially, team, you can go to Microsoft documentation. There you can go for the Azure icons. Okay, you can download the Azure architecture icons. Especially, there is a link. You can go there and you can download all the icons. See, these are the icons. You just download this one. All the icons will be downloaded in the zip format. You just copy the icon from this particular folder. That is also possible. Most of the items are already available. You can make use of this particular draw.io to draw the architectures. Alright, so firstly, I want to take a virtual network. That is what my first goal. I am taking a virtual network. This is what my virtual network. In this virtual network, I am planning to keep, I'm just bringing up a component. This is to just indicate this as a VNet. Okay, I'm just keeping this one here. So that itself is telling this is a virtual network. And in this virtual network, I'm dividing this virtual network into different subnets. That's the next step. Intentionally, I'm dividing this virtual network into few subnets. The subnet number 1, I'm just taking this one as a VM subnet. The first one is the VM subnet. And the second one, I'm just taking this one as a app service, which is an app service one. Okay. Or app subnet. You can just write app subnet. That makes sense. You don't need to use app service always. You can use any other also. Alright, I have divided your virtual network into 2 parts. Oh, that is what exactly you're saying. Let me see any icon is available for Azure subnet. Okay, so that I can use the same thing over there. Okay, it's okay. I don't say anything. But if you want, you can get that one from the Azure icons drop down. But that is Azure icon downloaded list. That's not an important. Okay, but I'm just representing this as a subnet. Okay, alright. When you draw the architectures in real time, you no need to tell it is a subnet. Okay, that level is not really required. No one will ask you whether this is sitting in a subnet or not. If you draw a VNet, automatically they can sense inside components or in subnets. Okay, that's a basic point. And now I'm just keeping a name here to just tell it's a virtual network. All right. Once this is done, I'm going to take another VNet dedicatedly only to just make you more understand on how exactly the VNet pairing, VNet linking works. For that, I'm just bringing up another virtual network name. Okay, intentionally. You may think, okay, is this really a possible architecture in real time? Means I can say yes or no, because I'll tell the possible cases also why there is a need for another virtual network when you have one virtual network. And also, this virtual network belongs to Southeast Asia. I'm just taking some example as a Southeast Asia. And I'm considering another example here as East Asia. Okay, this is East Asia. Okay, this is East Asia. So this is Southeast Asia and this is East Asia. That's awesome. So now the point is, okay, we understand especially about the VM subnet. So these are the subnet division we did already. And what exactly you are planning to keep, especially in the East Asia subnet. Okay, that also you need to think a bit. Okay, especially I'm planning to keep in the East Asia. Okay, let me give some different colors so that I think your understanding also really good. I'm just keeping that one in one color. That is a VNet area. This is another VNet area for your representation. I'm taking especially particularly one subnet in the VNet which belongs to East Asia. But here I'm just keeping here a DB subnet, okay, which is for the database. That's awesome so far. So far good. Now I'm just doing one small activity for you. Okay, you know very well that these boxes are the subnets. Okay, I don't want to keep any more these talking about this is a subnet, this is a subnet. I'm just bringing the components directly here. That's my next point. I'm just bringing up the app service is the one of the component, Azure app service. Okay, Azure app service is the one of the component which you can take it up. I'm just taking the Azure app service. This Azure app service for now I'm just considering as one of the component which we are going to use as part of our architecture. Take this component, and there is one more. Instead of DB subnet, I'm just taking the PostgreSQL DB. I'm just giving here Azure Postgres. Okay, just give this one too. Take the PostgreSQL. I'm just giving the PostgreSQL DB here. That's awesome. So far good. Now if you notice one thing, so far what exactly we have pulled? We have pulled total 3 components, and another component I'm just bringing here, that is a virtual machine. See, that is Azure VM. Okay, just take Azure VM. I'm just bringing Azure VM here. Awesome too. So far excellent. So you have a region called Southeast Asia, and the Southeast Asia you created one VNet. Inside the VNet you created 2 subnets. Those subnets are one for app service, one for virtual machine. And you have another VNet which you have only one subnet that is dedicated to only database. That's awesome. Now I'm just giving some sort of colors for this so that you have a good understanding on this. So meaning that this belongs to Southeast Asia, and I'm just giving this color for blue so that this one belongs to East Asia. That's awesome. So far good. I'm just moving this one aside. I'll let you. Okay. So far good. So far you formed you have the components for the application, app layer, database layer, each and everything is awesome. Next I'm just going for the front end part, which is a load balancer layer. If you come here team, the layer which is completely exposed for the public, that layer I'm talking about. Okay, we know very well that we can use Azure Friendo as one of the best component to just handle your load. You no need to use Azure Friendo every time. Even you can use Azure App Gateway also. That is also absolutely possible. I'm not saying that you should not use that. Even you can still use Azure App Gateway also. I will deal another connection with App Gateway, but for now you just use Azure Friendo only. Okay, I'm just connecting the Azure Friendo because which you know already, so that our process would be a bit fast in this case. Okay, and later I will take Traffic Manager and App Gateway also in another subsequent project. We just take the Friendo here. This is what your Friendo is. You know very well that the Friendo is the one exactly will be connected with your backend service. Okay, my backend service here is exactly the app service. That is what you are making a connection to your backend service. Okay, this is the basic thing you know already. Okay, this is the basic thing you know already. Right. And also, whatever the app service receives the traffic, this particular app service needs to pass the traffic to the database also. This is the next immediate connection which we need to implement thoroughly. Okay, that is the next important thing. But the point is, how to implement this one is the one that is what our learning point, and we will see that also. So far good team, so far good. Okay, alright. And you know one more thing, especially, okay, if you talk about one thing, if you use Azure Friendo Premium, okay, Azure Friendo Premium is the one which itself will launch a private endpoint inside your app service, so that your connection would be very nice if you are using Azure Friendo Premium, right? So that part you know already. So I'm just talking about Azure Standard, Azure Friendo Standard, Azure Friendo Premium. Those things only I'm talking about. Alright team. So far our understanding is good. But I'm not talking about any connections, but this is what your traffic flow. The traffic should come to the Friendo. Friendo should be able to route the traffic to the backend pool called app service. The app service should be able to communicate with the database. That's all exactly you should think about. Especially I'm taking a database, not the Postgres, sorry. I'm just taking the MySQL, okay? We never seen about the MySQL so far, so that's why I'm just using the MySQL, okay? Just take the MySQL one, okay? I'm just using the MySQL. Okay? Just keep this one here. So, okay, team. So far good. Now let's go to the DevOps model. Let's think about the DevOps model. If you consider the DevOps model, in the left side, I'm just taking one arrow, which is representing a separation from your portal architecture to DevOps one. I'm just taking this one. I just copy this one and just bring this one here, Tim. Okay, that's fine. So once you are here, I'm just increasing this particular width of this particular separator. Just keep that one for our best reference. Once this is done, I'm just drawing the DevOps model for us. Just take this particular model. The first one is a repository. Is the one exactly the developer will check in the code. That part we know already. So that's a basic thing. Azure repos are getting connected to the Azure build pipeline. Okay, that is what the next important thing. Here comes the interesting fact, team. Okay, you know very well that build pipelines will use a component inbuilt task called build and push. The advantage of the build and push is you need to provision one more component, team. For your reference, I am telling one more subnet is required. Even you can launch that particular thing also inside the virtual network. That is what exactly I'm just telling as Azure ACR. Okay, you can go there and you can check for the Azure ACR so that your understanding will be very nice. Okay, I'm just taking the Azure ACR. Okay, let me double check what exactly the Azure ACR is here. I don't see anything here. Okay, let me take the container registry very clearly. Let me type it. Okay. Yes, awesome. I'm just taking this one out. I'm just taking this particular icon. I'm just keeping this icon. This is what the container registry icon take. Okay. So far good. So now what exactly you're trying to do, team? My goal here is whatever the Azure repos are there, Azure build pipeline will push an image to Azure container registry. Point to be noted. There is a connection which is traveling from DevOps to the portal. Point you need to understand. So alright, so far good. This connection you know already. I'm sure you can implement the repos to build pipeline. That part you already know. And there is one more which is the Azure release pipeline, right? Azure release pipeline. I'm just taking up the Azure release pipeline. This is what exactly the build pipeline. I'm just considering the Azure release pipeline here. If you consider the Azure release pipeline, team, so what exactly the point you should understand here. The two things are the input for the Azure release pipeline. Just you need to pass the artifact, which is a pipeline connection. And another one is the input for this one, that is exactly you need to pull an image from your container registry to the release pipeline. That's exactly your release pipeline job. Okay, please understand. So point you should understand. So there is a connection which is going from here to there. There is another connection which you are pulling that image to from container registry to the release pipeline. Now what exactly release pipeline will do? Release pipeline's responsibility is to just push that image or deploy that image to the app service. That is what exactly release pipeline job. That's awesome, team, so far. I'm just taking this one here. I'm just bringing. That's awesome connection. That's exactly the connection which we need to think about. So if you notice one thing, first thing, wherever you are crashing DevOps to the portal, that is what exactly your service connection. So I'm crashing from DevOps to portal. This is what one service connection, which is an app service connection. You know this already, how to create this one. I'm taking one more, especially which is another app service, another service connection, that is for the ACR. ACR means Azure Container Registry. So two areas exactly you need to make sure you have the service connections ready. That's awesome. So once you are done with this particular understanding, and very interesting fact, one more. So always you know that you will be will have a very good understanding, and will always very interested to just run your build and release pipeline on the virtual machine, which is a self-hosted agent. This is one of the self-hosted agent which I am considering as a VM. Just copy this VM, just bring back that VM to the portal. This is what exactly Azure DevOps agent registration, which we know very well. So we need to register this particular VM into the Azure DevOps, and your build and release pipeline will be executed on the same VM. I'm just connecting the build pipelines to this particular virtual machine. Exactly, sorry. And also I need to connect the release pipelines also to the particularly for the same virtual machine. A small change here. Let me explain the change. This time, your build and release pipelines are not getting executed on the VM. Your build and release pipelines are getting executed on the containers. Please understand. We are improving our knowledge. Executing a build and release pipeline on the virtual machine is the one which we learned already in the project 1. Now in this particular project, we are going to see how to execute the build and release pipeline on the container. So that's the next important and learning point. Okay, so once you are done with this thing, team, now what exactly our goal here is, let's keep some sort of color for your release pipeline setups. Okay, I'm just giving some color so that you can easily understand. These are all the things are talking about the DevOps area. Okay, let me give some color for that. All right, that's awesome, team. So far we understand about few things. We understand the case about our architecture and also our DevOps model. Okay, this is what exactly our planning. Okay, any questions so far? Let me read a question in the chat box. I see a question in the chat box. Let me see that. Can you explain build to release pipeline and Azure inputs? No worries, Sukumar. I believe you will understand this one when I am configuring. That is one thing. But let me give a view one more time. Okay. So what exactly you are doing in the build pipeline? If you recall our yesterday and day before yesterday's class, our goal was always we are trying to push an image to Azure, right? That was our goal. We did that. We did that one by using manual approach. We did that one by using a Docker command also, sudo docker build -t tag something dot, right? We did that. 2 ways we achieved that one. This is what I did. So similarly, this time I'm not using that technique at all. I'm going to use a third technique where Azure DevOps are having a built-in task here. Okay. Azure DevOps has a built-in task. That task is the one exactly will help whatever the arrow I'm highlighting now. That particular task will help to just build an image and push that image to Azure. That is this arrow. Okay. And the second arrow which you are seeing here, this arrow if you talk about, if you recall, always you need to point to release pipeline to the build pipelines, because that is what exactly your release pipeline will refer, right? See, I understand you push an image to directly here. Okay, I got it. But whenever you are forming a release pipeline, you need to pass always the input of the build pipeline artifact. I know your build pipeline artifact is an image. That is very clear. That is what how you are passing. You are not passing from here. You are directly asking release pipeline, hey, please go there and pull it. That is what one connection you are talking about. Okay, that is one connection. And
okay. Yeah, got it.
You got it. Okay.
Yeah, now you are saying like Azure build pipeline giving image to ACR, and here we are saying like Azure build pipeline saying to release pipeline you can get the image from ACR.
Yes.
That is your
yeah, that's okay. Exactly the thing. Yeah. All right, Tim. Any other question?
Dinesh, in addition to this,
Praveen, your voice is very choppy for me, Praveen. Sorry. For others, please. You guys are able to hear the Praveen question? Hello, Praveen. Sorry, Praveen. I think your voice was choppy. Can you please repeat your question one more time?
Yes, Dinesh, his voice is breaking.
Praveen, one more time, please. Okay, all right. Okay, other please. Any other person? Maybe let him come again. Yeah. No questions. Everything all right?
Sorry, Dinesh. Am I audible, Dinesh?
Now good, Praveen. Proceed. Yeah.
Actually, from Azure build pipelines to we are custom image we are pushing to Azure repository, and from Azure repository to Azure release pipeline we are getting the custom image. So why we are using in middle Azure repository directly? Why can't we pull from the Azure build pipeline, Dinesh?
So you just a moment. What is Azure repository you're talking about? Container registry? Are you talking about that one? This one you're talking about? why we are using this one? Why can't we use build pipeline? Is that your question, Praveen?
Correct, Dinesh.
Okay. See, okay, Praveen, I believe if you notice our yesterday's and day before yesterday's class, always we are storing our image in one particularly safe place. Okay. You can still build your image and you can keep that image in the build pipeline, where by release pipeline you can deploy that image to app service. That is absolutely possible. But my point is, you are keeping an image on the build pipeline means nothing but on the VM. If you keep an image on the VM, for example, I'm just giving a scenario. So someone coming to this particular VM, for example, he pruned all your existing images in that particular virtual machine. Your build gone. You got it, Praveen? Your build gone. So what of the build you developed maybe a few days before? If he removed the image means your thing's gone. You cannot reinstall the same build again because that image was not there. That is why it is always very safe to keep your images or artifacts, especially the images, in the container registry, so that you don't need to worry at all. After 6 months also, if you ask me, 6 months before you deployed a build to the production, can you please redeploy the same build? Of course, I have the build with me, which is there in the Azure Container Registry. I can deploy the same image, which is tagged with some number 10 or 15. I can deploy the some tag number 15 as it is to the production. That's why it is always better to save to keep in the ACR. You can keep in the virtual machine also, if you really have such a capacity in the virtual machine, because images are keep on coming to your virtual machine. I don't think so. Some point of time you will raise a concern saying that your space is not enough for the virtual machine. Then what exactly you will do? You will delete the old images. Those old images are nothing but your production builds. You got my point, Praveen?
Yes, Dinesh. Got it, Dinesh. Thank you.
Okay, all right, team. So I'm considering you don't have any other questions. Okay, all right, team. I'm thinking someone definitely will ask why we kept the database in another VNet, but no one asked. I don't know why. What is the reason for that? Why we kept the database in another VNet? No, is the architecture is demanding? This is an intentional activity, team. Okay, this is an intentional activity I did. The reason for this one is because I want to teach you some concepts practically on the architecture. Okay, those concepts, if you do like this, you will have a very good understanding, especially on the private DNS zones, private link, VNet pairing, and DNS entries. All these concepts will come from these connections only. That's why I kept the database in another VNet. If you keep the database in another VNet, there the problem also will start for you. It is not so easy for your app service to connect to the database directly. That is not easy task. So you need to think a bit beyond. Then only you can make a connection from app service to the database. If database is sitting in the same VNet team, that is a cakewalk. Easy. All the subnet components can communicate each other. See, VM can communicate to the app service communicate to the ACR. That and all possible by default, virtual network nature. But when now you keep some other component in another VNet, that is not so direct. You need to think about VNet peering. You need to think about virtual network link. You need to think about any private DNS zone is there. You need to think about the private DNS zone entries. So all these will be there in the picture. That's why I intentionally placed a database in another VNet, which is sitting in the East Asia, another region completely. If you ask me, is this really a possible scenario in real time? If you ask me, I will say sometimes yes, but very few cases. I will give the requirement for you. For example, team, let's consider a use case. Okay. For example, I have an application where my user base is completely in Singapore. Generally, I have user base is completely in Singapore. Then obviously what exactly you will think about? Okay, my user base is in Singapore. I want to keep each and every component in Singapore only. That's absolutely awesome. There is no doubt in that. Some cases, if Azure don't have any particular data center, especially in data center in Singapore, which can provide you a PostgreSQL or MySQL databases. For example, they are running short of resources. They don't have any resources. or they are telling you need to wait for some time to get the resources. Though you mail them, but they are telling you need to wait for some more time to have the infrastructure for the database in the Singapore region. Will you wait for that? You need to move your product to, right? You need to proceed for the testing also, right? Then immediately you can deploy your database in nearby region, which is a paid region. You can deploy and you can make sure your process or testing process, what are the things are to move on. And later when it comes to the production, if you still insisting you or saying that still they are not ready, then you can take a decision either to keep permanently in Singapore or permanently in East Asia. Complete architecture, not only one component here, one component here. But the case is, if the infrastructure data center is not there, of course I have a chance to keep the database in another region. You can keep it, but nearby region, because if you keep this particular database in the US East or US West, a latency issue will come. Because your app service is sitting here, app service needs to call the database. If the database is very nearby, I think you can get a very good latency. That is the case exactly I placed here. Okay, intention here is I want to teach you few concepts practically on the network, on the architecture. Okay, that is the reason. All right, team. Fine, team. So this is what about our architecture. Okay, fine. So now let's start writing the steps. How exactly we need to implement this one. Okay, let's start write down the steps. Okay, fine, team. Okay, you can tell me what exactly the steps are really needed. Also, I have the few steps ready here already. Okay, let's assess the same thing. Okay, fine, team. So first and foremost thing, provisioning the resource group. Agree? We need to provision the resource group. Then create a VNet and divide into subnets: app subnet, DB subnet, VM subnet, which is wrong, which is not at all required, which is ACR subnet. I'm just taking one more ACR subnet, VM subnet. Okay, and followed by VNet. I'm just giving some name here as SG-VNet. This is Singapore VNet. I'm just telling as Singapore VNet. Next, I'm going to create one more VNet. So, okay, let's talk about this particular thing. Okay, create a VM in the VM subnet. That's awesome. Create app service and plan in the app subnet. Okay, I'm just keeping app subnet. That's awesome. The next one I'm going to take, create a HK VNet. It's a Hong Kong VNet, and divide the subnets into only a DB subnet. Okay, I'm just keeping this particular thing as HK subnet. Okay, HK VNet and divide that particular subnets into. I'm just keeping one of the DB VNet. That's more than enough for me. DB subnet, sorry, one DB subnet is more than enough. Then provision the MySQL into HK DB subnet. That's awesome. Okay, HK DB subnet. Okay, that's good. So once you are here, team, what exactly you need to do? Provision the Friendo. You can take Friendo Premium or Friendo Standard. That is your wish. Okay, Standard or Premium. Okay, this is very easy thing only. You don't need to worry. And also you already placed, I think ACR. I think ACR. I have not talked about ACR. I'm just talking about the ACR here, team. Okay, copy, cut, and just go for this particular thing. I'm just talking about ACR into ACR subnet. That's all, team. All right. Your provisioning part is clear. Any questions so far? Any questions on the provisioning part? That is all exactly we need to proceed. If you proceed for the DevOps part, let's talk about the DevOps part. The first and foremost thing, register a VM as a Azure DevOps agent, and interestingly, this time run the agent as a container. Very interesting one. Okay, very interesting. Run the agent as a container. And once you are running that agent as a container, service connections to be ready for the app service and the ACR. That's correct only. That's awesome. And create Azure repository, Azure build pipeline to build and push an image to ACR. Okay, I'm just filling this gap. Okay, ACR. Then Azure release pipeline to release the image into app service. That's it, right? I believe service connections already we talked about here. I think Azure release pipeline to release app service. That's all exactly. So far, okay, you placed it really well, but you will face few challenges in between. You know what exactly the challenges? Especially whatever the application you are deploying into the app service, that app should connect to the database. Okay, there is a database also, right? MySQL database. So expectation here is this app should be able to connect to the database. That is the expectation. Okay. So I'm just thinking it will connect by default, and we will see what are the challenges we are getting during this journey, and we will try to fill that particular gap, team. All right, fine, team. Any questions so far, team? No questions, right? All right, fine. So once we are done with these things, I believe we need to proceed on provisioning the component. Okay, that is what our next important stage. And before going further, I believe so far you understand about the Docker file on the Spring Boot, Docker file on the React.js. I think those two are really enough to just build and push an image to Azure. So that part also we understand really well. So our process would be a bit easier only. So it is not so complex as we think. Okay. All right, team. So fine. So let's move on. Especially if you go for the provisioning part. Okay. This is what exactly the provisioning part. Let's go there to the portal. Let's start implementing and provisioning the component one by one. Okay. All right. So now we are going for the provisioning part. Just go for the portal. So firstly, I'm just taking one resource group team. Okay. I'm taking one resource group. This is what one of the resource group I'm just considering completely a fresh one. Okay. Completely a fresh one. I'm just taking a completely fresh resource group. I'm just considering this one. Okay. I'm just keeping a resource group name as. Okay. I'm just keeping this one as Docker project. Okay. So that is what exactly the thing I'm just keeping here, team. Okay. So once this is done, then you are going for this particular. I'm just going for this particular thing. You can keep anywhere, not an issue, not at all an issue. Okay. That's it. You just go for the tags, just review, create, and finally create. That's it. Okay. Resource group got created. Once your resource group got created, you just go for the process team. Provisioning also done. Then you need to create a Singapore VNet and you need to divide that one into the 3 subnets. That's what our goal. Okay, to do that, just go for the resource group. Sorry, just go for this particular thing. I'm just going for the VNet section. Okay, open the VNet section team. Click on the VNet section. Click create. So once you click on this one, there you can see this is the resource group. Okay, that's awesome. So you need to select your resource group, which is a Docker resource group, right? So which you just created. Okay, that is the exact Docker hyphen project. I'm just keeping here a same thing. Okay, Docker hyphen project hyphen VNet. Okay, something like that. Okay. Otherwise, you can give simply SG VNet also. Okay, that also makes sense. Okay, hyphen SG VNet. Okay, that is exactly the thing I'm just giving to you. Okay. All right. So once you provide this particular VNet team, this is going for the Singapore region only. That's awesome. And just go for the next button. There you need to think about your IP address section, not the security. Go for the IP address section. In this IP address section, first you need to think about your CIDR. Okay. I'm just taking a CIDR. 10.90.0.0/22. Okay. That is what exactly the CIDR I'm considering team. Okay. So once you consider this one, which is 1,000 IP addresses. 1,000 IP addresses. Can you please divide this one into the subnets? I need only 3 subnets only. You can take 256, 256, 256 and 1 256 you can keep idle. Okay. You don't need to use that one. I am just going for this particular thing. First one is VM subnet. VM subnet is the one. I'm just keeping 256 for that. Just add it. Okay. I'm just taking one more subnet. Just come here team. So there I'm just going for this particular thing. I'm just adding this one as an app subnet. And just come here. You just another 256 it's already considering. Just add it. Just go for one more subnet. I'm just taking this particular thing as ACR subnet. One more, right? I'm just taking this one as ACR subnet. Okay. So once your ACR subnet is also over, then you just add that one. And I'm just taking one more, which is additional, which I'm just keeping as a buffer. Or you can leave it also. You can create later. Okay, not an issue. Just proceed, review, create, and finally click on create. That's it, team. Okay. Your virtual network is ready. Your VNet is ready. So once VNet is ready, what is your next job team? Come here. Once my VNet is ready, I divided that one into the corresponding subnets also. That's clear. Next I'm just going for the create a VM and the VM subnet. That is my next task. So to do that team, you just go for the portal. I think let's wait for a second. I think it will be awesome. So your VNet is ready. Next go for the virtual machine team. It's a very fresh virtual machine team. Okay. Very fresh. Everything is fresh. Everything from scratch. Click create and just take the Azure virtual machine. This time I'm taking the key based approach. Okay. I think earlier we have seen the password based one. Now we can go for the key based one. I'm just going with the Docker project resource group. I just go for this one. I'm just taking Docker VM. Okay. Or something like that related to Docker. We will use Docker as one of the prefix item for each and everything. And once this is done team, I think I'm just keeping everything as it is. Ubuntu only I'm taking. Windows will take another example, not an issue. And just go further. I think 2 core 4 GB is more than enough. Key based one I'm just keeping team. And these things username is okay. And this is what exactly the key will be generated. Key will be generated by the Azure only. Okay. You don't need to worry. Once that is done, port 22 is been opened. I think this is needed for some time. Okay. But actually in production equivalent applications, we will not expose any port for the public. Okay. That is one of the thing you need to keep in your mind. Okay. we should not expose any port to the public always. And just go for the disk, and this is the OS disk and the data disk, which are not at all required for me, and just proceed for the networking interesting one. This is required. You need to deploy your virtual machine into the VM subnet only. Let's take that one. Okay, I'm just enabling the public IP for some time, and just proceed for that. No required, not required, not required, not required, not required. Finally click on the virtual machine. So your VM is ready. So now once the VM is ready, what is your next goal, team? My next goal here is, see, this is very important. Whenever you are going with the key-based approach, always it will tell you, please download the private key for a future reference. Please click on the download button. If you miss this particular download button click, you cannot access the VM. You cannot access the VM, team. That is not possible to access the VM. So that is all about your app virtual machine. So your VM provisioning is okay. Thank you for the session. See you in the next part.